there you are. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I told you earlier on that we shall be discussing the Sustainable Blue Economy Conference slated to take place from the 26th to the 28th of this month, actually here in Nairobi. Close to 5,000 delegates are expected to troop to Nairobi for that first very important meeting that has attracted the eye of the world. And guess who is here with us? Shipping and Maritime Affairs Cabinet Principal Secretary. There you are, prophecy in the making. Principal Secretary Nancy Karigithu is joining us here. She's a regular on this program. She's well versed in this topic. She's fondly referred as the lady of the oceans. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much,
Madam PS. First of all, let me hear from you. I mean, we've been talking about this conference now for almost 10 months now. Here we are, Homestretch. How ready are we for this conference?
Absolutely ready. Yes,
Sure
Homestretch now. Of course. Do you have any doubt?
No, I don't have, but I want you to convince me.
No, you shouldn't. We are all set. Just sort of putting the final touches.
What are these?
Just where the rubber meets the road, the fine tuning. As it were, could I say what? Rehearsals. Everything is set.
Everything is set.
Yeah.
Who is coming, by the way?
We've got registered almost 5,000 delegates.
5,000 delegates?
Yes, almost, yeah.
Almost?
Yeah. Yes,
And
so it's going to be quite big.
It's going to be quite big?
Yeah. That was as of last week, almost 5,000, but still people are registering. I'm still getting inquiries. You wouldn't believe that. Yes.
Even at this point?
Even at this point, yeah. Yeah.
We know for sure that you know, during past meetings, and this has become a tradition.
Yes.
When we're having this kind of meetings, you know, some roads have to be closed. Have we identified the roads that the public should avoid by all means?
You see, there are various committees that have been tasked with various issues to do with the conference, and there is one dealing with the traffic issues, the protocol issues, hospitality issues. Yeah. So I'm very sure that, and I'm confident that all that has been taken care of. Yes, and the programs will be released towards the end of, towards the close of the conference, beginning, yeah. Yes.
And what about the venue of the meetings? Which places would host what?
The central place is, of course, the KICC, the plenary, and around the KICC and the University of Nairobi, various side events, depending on the particular specialized topic and the kind of interest that particular people have. So we've got a lot of side events and the plenary also. So the idea was to bring it around a central place to reduce a lot of movement. Yes.
Tell me this, in terms of profile, how big or how small is the sustainable blue economy, you know, compared to other previous meetings like TCAD, like WTO? There was a lot of hype, you know, around these major meetings, you know, in the past. Currently, there seems to be a lot of quietness.
That's what you're saying.
That's what
I don't think so. I don't think so. These are global events, and it has attracted the global community. So this is big too. I don't know what it's big. It's quite big. Yes, it is.
It is in the same ranks with WTO, TCAD, and all this.
It should be. TCAD was basically African, wasn't it? Of course, with a lot of partners and development. Yeah. You know, targeting people, but this is a major, and this is the first of its kind, talking about sustainable blue economy development. Yes.
And we all know for sure that you know that KBC is going to be the official broadcaster for this conference.
And I hope you're ready.
Sorry?
And I hope you're ready.
We have always been.
Yes.
That's our weakness.
Yes. By readiness, I mean to ask the right questions, to be coverage in a professional manner. I'm sure you are.
Tell me this, I mean, you know, the meeting, you know, is structured around, you know, sustainable blue economy and the 2030 agenda.
Yeah.
That is the overarching theme. But we also know that there are 9 sub-themes.
Yes.
Which excites you the most and why?
I think for me, blue economy is exciting because of its interconnectedness. You cannot pick one area that doesn't touch on the others. And it's, for me, exploiting the complementarities of all the various angles. That's exciting. Yep. And for me to be seeing them being discussed all at once in my country, this is very good, because for me it brings around the idea of connectivity and how various subsectors feed into each other. So I'm excited. But if you want me to be personal, okay. Personal. Next year is going to be, or rather, next year the theme of the World Maritime Day is going to be on empowering women. So for me, that's personal. And we're going to be having a whole event on what role women can play in the development of a sector that has been very predominantly male-oriented. So for me, that's one of the things that excites me, because we're going to be having no less than 3 side events on that. Yep. One with the one that's being spearheaded by the African Union. We've got one that we are spearheading as WOMESA. Yep. WOMESA is our own, or rather, may I say homegrown, because it started in Mombasa, Kenya. But it's an association of women in the maritime sector, but covering the Eastern and Southern African region. This association was set up with the partnership of International Maritime Organization in terms of trying to integrate women into mainstream maritime activities. And it's going to be, we're going to be hosting a side event, because if you look at the maritime sector historically, it's been very male dominated. In fact, history says that the earliest women who went to sea went disguised as men. In fact, we're told of one time there was a captain who had a very good female second in command, and who really, he really relied on. But because the sector, and he couldn't be allowed to take her on board, and because provisions, arrangements on ships are very strictly controlled, he had to disguise her on the list as a pet.
As a pet?
Yes.
Wow.
So, like I said, and in line with the theme for next year for World Maritime Day, the world is waking up, and because of the, as you say, the SDGs and previously the MDGs, trying to bring equity. How is the maritime sector? The conversation is, how is the maritime sector going to contribute to that conversation? And therefore, the integration of women takes center stage. There's also another event on women in the maritime sector being hosted by our co-sponsor, Canada. So for me, that's good, because it tells young ladies that it's okay, it's safe, it's time for them to come on board, and also to be able to get role models in women, powerful women from around the world who are in the sector, and therefore telling our little girls back home that yes, the maritime sector is ready.
Yeah. So, it's the first time that this meeting is being held in the world. Then how do we then sell the agenda of sustainable blue economy to the world and remove Nairobi and Kenya out of the picture?
Do I get you that? Do I get you? How do we sell this agenda as not an agenda for Kenya by Kenya, but an agenda, for Africa and by Africa? Wow. By the very title of the conference, this is a global conference. This is not a Kenyan conference. This brings the world together to discuss and to agree on what is very much a global agenda, sustainable development, but in this particular case, sustainable blue economy development. It's held in Kenya, yes, but it very much brings the world together to discuss, to share experiences, to share knowledge, to create strategic partnerships in terms of, first of all, discussing issues that are really relevant and of importance to us, and of course also the challenges, find solutions, but most important, the theme is sustainable blue growth. Creates an opportunity for us to share information and knowledge, share data, share scientific information, cutting edge technology, and of course forge partnerships that help us then go together based on internationally accepted norms towards exploiting the resources in the oceans, but of course also ensuring healthy ecosystems around the oceans. That's certainly a global agenda. If you look at it, and somebody once asked, it's all water. Why is it called the planet Earth? Why is it called Earth and not planet ocean? So you're talking of 71% of the Earth's surface being covered by water, 60% of that water being outside national jurisdiction, therefore calling for a global integrated way of managing the uses, and most important, in ensuring transgenerational sustainability, because it's not just for us today, but it's also to ensure that future generations also find something from it. So it's creating livelihood, jobs, wealth today, but also making sure that we do not spoil it for the future generations. That's not a Kenyan agenda, that's a global agenda.
Tell me this. I mean, when you look at Africa, for example, with a coastline that spans around 31,000 kilometers, it's considered to be the largest island in the world.
Island continent, yes.
Surrounded by how many oceans, from Mediterranean Sea to Indian Ocean Sea to Atlantic.
Yes.
But when you look at the contribution of Africa into the world economy, when it comes to blue economy, it's actually less than 3%. How can we use the blue economy meeting, to make or to create that urgency, within Africa, that look here, we are sitting on a landmine and we can exploit these, to help our economies move forward?
I think it's about time, and I think, like you've rightly observed, yes, Africa is a huge island continent, 38 coastal states out of 55, but someone made a joke once that our historical association with the sea was not very good, and therefore, just with a light touch, and therefore maybe we turned our backs to the sea and looked inward to agriculture and other economic activities. But now the time has come. We cannot afford to do this any longer. And we must look towards the sea for creating livelihoods. Now, one of the things that you observe is that the only or the most prominent activity that we've engaged as Africa from the oceans, from the blue economy, you may say, is shipping, because of our international trade and interconnectedness with the other parts of the world. But even when you look at that, our participation as Africa is not really there at all. What has this cost us? Of course, because we don't own the ships ourselves, we've not developed that part of it. It has meant that our intra-Africa trade, our trade with one another, has remained very low. And if I may quote some of the figures, in 2016, it was only 18%. That's very little when you compare with 59 in Asia, intra-Asia trade, 69 in Europe. This has really cost us, because it has cost us in terms of integration, in terms of unity, in terms of creating wealth from that space. And of course, you may say that it's resulted in a lot of resource idleness. But I want to say that the time has come, and there is an increased awakening, increased awareness. And with policy driven from the African Union Commission, we're seeing a lot of reawakening and policy development to drive the continent towards blue growth. We're talking of, in 2010, having the African Maritime Transport Charter that looks to or encourages Africa to create, most of all, very important, our own shipping arrangement, our own capacity to trade with each other, because then we don't have to rely on arrangements that have been put to suit different people. Then you're talking of an Agenda 2063 that also emphasizes and urges Africa to leverage on the ocean resources to create impetus for economic growth. And these are all very good. But of course, it means we also have to internalize them internally, take them on board, and create the necessary national policies that then help us to implement that. Recently, with the signing of the ACFTA, of course, very important, but it won't happen, or it will be one of the biggest catalysts will be the maritime sector, because that's how we create the trading links with one another. We don't have to import from outside, because we can do that within one another, and without having to go out and export jobs, export so much economic activities and benefits when we can do that. So we're looking to this conference to deepen that conversation. African Union, UNECA, that's United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, is very much part of this process, and therefore we're looking forward to have that discussion around that integration.
First of all, I mean, you see, we keep on talking about the blue economy.
Yes.
But in the real sense, what are we talking about here?
The blue
economy.
Blue skies, blue waters. Well, blue economy is a very interesting concept, because it looks towards the sea, towards water, development, economic activities based around the ocean ecosystems. And very interesting, because it came around, or rather the concept was developed by small island developing states, because during the Earth Summit, the United Nations adopted as its focus the green economy. And the small island developing states said, wait a minute, we're surrounded by oceans, that's our livelihood. So yes, green economy in terms of sustainability, but focused on the blue, because that's what we are, we're surrounded by water. So over time, of course, the concept has gained credence and across the board, and now has been incorporated in the sustainable, UN Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda number 14, very critical, very important. And therefore, we're looking towards reducing that resource idleness, but of course, most important, creating jobs, livelihoods, wealth, but in a sustainable manner. Now, the African blue economy concept has gone a bit further, based on the policies emerging from, the AU, the UN, the UNECA, because we're looking at not just the seas and the oceans, but also inland water bodies, underground waters, all of it, but based on sustainable exploitation of those spaces. We're talking of a lot of economic activities. We're talking of shipping, of course, maritime transport. We're talking of jobs, and because exporting human resources for the global, fleet. Anybody can do it, because of that governance structure that has been set to look at transboundary, transnational water issues. Then it means it creates a level playing field. Platform from which everybody can launch into the blue economy. If you realize the case of like Philippines, providing crew from Philippines, but all over the world. So it means that we have the opportunity to create a lot of economic activities. Like I said, shipping, ship repair, shipbuilding, which can happen anywhere where you have competitive labor. People who are well skilled. It means that even from where we sit, we can do it, as long as we are able to provide what the customer is looking for. If it is very well skilled people, we can do that in Kenya. If it is labor that is competitive, because like I was explaining the other day about wages in the shipping industry. Every country wants to gain competitive advantage. If you talk of wages for the seafarers, you provide a competitive advantage because your GDP allows it. For example, the person in Philippines, the salary they earn makes a lot of sense for them in the Philippines. But if you pay somebody like that in Europe, it means nothing. Which means, therefore, it provides us with an opportunity to position ourselves to be able to reap those benefits. You're talking of exploiting ocean natural resources, like fishing,
minerals,
hydrocarbons.
Yeah.
But of course, also tourism, and we are well placed.
And scuba diving.
Water sports, as you can see, sports fishing. So many things that we can do with that space which lies idle.
And aquaculture as well.
Aquaculture, agroponics, is it? Mixing of fishing with growth of vegetables. So many things. And what's exciting me about the conference is that it's going to be an opportunity for our young people to open their minds, to see something different from what they're used to. Maybe for them, many of them, if you ask them, is because of the way we do our fishing, because of the way we undertake our water-based transport. It means that maybe they're not attracted because it's not glamorous for one. It doesn't look like it is very economically viable. But when you talk of bringing even, scientific, having scientific side events, educational research, it's an opportunity for young people to see that there's a lot in it for them, as long as they have they open their minds to it and have a blue economy mindset. Yeah.
Then tell me this. I mean, then how do we inculcate, a culture or maybe a mind shift, into a national thinking? That look here. I mean, we have focused so much on the land space. We have water out here. How do we encourage people, to explore the opportunities that lies therein?
I think this conference, like I've said, is a very good opportunity happening right in Kenya, bringing the world here. It's a good opportunity for Kenyans, for young people particularly, that for those 3-4 days, all they're going to be seeing on their screens is something that can be a very good source of income for them. I think that for me is very exciting, that we are opening spaces that we've not been able to, on such a big platform, to be able to communicate and send a message. It's also a good opportunity at this time for also the government to be able to communicate a message that wait here, we are ready. Look here, we are ready. We are doing what it takes. We are taking the necessary measures to develop and to open up this space. As you're aware now, policy development is leaning towards the development of the blue. Vision 2030, taking on board the blue economy, for me, that's a very exciting time. And being for the blue economy sector emerging as one of the 8 sectors under the economic pillar that it's going to be depended upon to bring about 10% sustainable growth of the GDP. That's quite something. Of course, in terms of capacity building, very, very important. And some of the projects that the government is coming up with under the championship of His Excellency the President are all geared towards opening up this space, capacity development, training, and preparing the young people, who are many, in order to take up opportunities in the maritime sector. This is very, very, very exciting time for us, particularly those who've been in the sector for long.
Tell me this, I mean, we are partnering in this meeting with highly developed countries, and I'm talking about Japan, which has the 3rd biggest economy in the world. You're talking about Canada, which is a first world country. And all these, they have highly advanced blue economy status in the world. How then do we plan to exploit, our friendship with these 2 countries, to our benefit?
Like I said, the blue economy or the ocean blue growth is not a one nation, one country, one region affair. Like I said, 71% of the world is interconnected by water. That then makes us neighbors with one another because of that ocean space and in terms of interaction. Now, this is a sector that cannot develop without partnerships, strategic collaboration across nations, across regions, bringing on board not just the public, but the private sector, across nation, intergovernmental organizations, international organizations. And therefore, within this partnership, in terms of hosting and participating in this sector, we hope to see, at the end of the conversation, strategic partnerships in terms of the activities that are available in the maritime sector. So this is something that nobody can do alone, and therefore we look to creating synergy and international relationships. Yes.
Very well, because we have to wind up. I want you to look into your camera, which is facing you, and tell the people at home why this meeting is relevant to them, and at the end of the day, what do we stand to gain as a country?
We hope to come out of here with, of course, first of all, having sent the message, Kenya is ready for blue growth. And of course, out of this, we hope to see strategic development between the private, the public sectors, in terms of projects, in terms of sharing knowledge, in terms of sharing technology, and to move forward to developing our blue economy. And I want to tell the Kenyans out there to please follow this conversation, become part of this conversation, and understand that the world has shifted. It's no longer just about our comfort zones. It's about going out and experiencing this new area and learning together about all the opportunities that are available. And changing our mindset into what we can do together.
Very well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
PS for joining us here. And
yes.
We look forward to engaging you and your team as we draw closer to the conference, and of course during the conference.
Thank you very much.
After the conference as well.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for this opportunity to share this message. And we look forward to seeing you at the conference, of course, and before that.
Very good.
Asante.
Let's see what the future brings.
Absolutely.
Well, Maritime and Shipping Affairs Cabinet Principal Secretary, dear Lord, Nancy Karigithu joining us here to help us understand the Blue Economy Conference, which is slated to kick off from the 26th to the 28th of this month at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. And do keep it right here, because KBC is definitely your Blue Economy partner.